I sometimes find it a little bit insulting. Feels like we're getting a little loosey-goosey with what the idea of an album is, and people are dropping stuff just knowing that it'll be bought. All of this reminds me of last year when Tortured Poets Department came out, and a lot of good music was coming out. There was Cowboy Carter and Billie Eilish and Casey Musgraves and Ariana Grande. Like, that whole first half of the year was stacked. A friend of mine asked me what I thought of Tortured Poets Department because she knows that I'm a big fan of Taylor Swift as a songwriter, and I said, I really like listening to it, but it's not a very good album. And I meant that, and I meant that with love, because it was a ton of songs. I don't think all of them needed to be there, but I enjoyed listening to them because I would love to sit in the studio and just listen to whatever came out of some of my favorite musical artists. Doesn't mean it's a good album, right? And I told her honestly, like, something like this for me doesn't compete with Cowboy Carter, for example, that had a very clear message, intention. Everything on that album was distilled. And when we're talking about it from a writing perspective, like in fiction, right, we talk a lot about killing your darlings and the economy of words and making sure that everything on the page is actually necessary to be there. And that's both a way of making sure that your story is as tight and clear and concise as it can be, but it's also part of respect for your reader, right? That you've taken the time to go through your work to make sure everything there is actually important and not just you rambling for several pages. And don't get me wrong, there's plenty of writers who I love the way they think, I love the way they write, and I would love to read all of their notes, even if it was rambling for 10 pages, but that does not mean it's a good novel. It doesn't mean it's a good story, at least to me, personally, right? So I think this whole Sabrina Carpenter conversation brings up the same thing, and I mean, there's a lot of discourse about the feminism side of it, and that's a good conversation to be having. I don't have anything to add to that conversation right now, but what I will say is I think it's difficult to come in with an album that does have a lot of fun things about it, some good beats, some good lines, but overall doesn't feel like, at least to me, that it's saying much more than she said in the past, or that there was a specific reason for that music to come out right now. And I think when you're coming out at a time where music is so good, it's very difficult, right? Conan Gray just dropped Wishbone a couple weeks ago, and he said he wrote 300 songs for that project, and 12 ended up on the album. And I think you can feel that when a work is distilled to the point of being necessary. I think it's also very difficult right now when you have artists like Audrey Hobart, who dropped her debut album, and it's 12 tracks, and every single one is not only specific, but it feels necessary. And that's not to compare artists to each other. You know, it's not necessarily good or bad, it's just different. But I will say you can feel when there's intention behind something. And for Audrey's album, it feels very much like a snapshot of a particular chapter of her life. And for Audrey, it's her debut album, right? So there's stakes to that. And from the consumer perspective, I sometimes find it a little bit insulting. It's almost like a respect issue. Like, I find it difficult sometimes when artists get so big that they kind of just put out stuff, and it's not that the stuff is inherently bad, but it feels like we're getting a little loosey-goosey with what the idea of an album is, and people are dropping stuff just knowing that it'll be bought without actually having an intention behind it. And it's not that everything has to have like a message and a button and a bow. Things can be messy, right? But I think there should be an intention. I think it starts to feel a little icky to me. Because again, don't get me wrong, a lot of these songs are fun, and it's not that they're bad, it's more that I can tell there's no pulse behind it. Like, there's no reason that this song needed to come out right now as part of this distillation of this moment in the artist's life. It's just more riffing on ideas, which I would love to sit in the studio and hear it all. I think that's so cool. I don't think that makes an album. I'm gonna listen to it, I'm gonna bop, I like to dance, sue me, I'm human, but it's not gonna be one of those albums that sticks with me. So for those reasons, I'm out. No, but those are my thoughts.